Yes. Okay. Good afternoon. John, do you hear me? John Clancy. And Todd.
Yes, I hear you.
Okay, fine. All right. Okay, let's get started. As this is email core. In preparation for this section, I think chairs realized that we probably can use a couple of hours. We only have one. We'll try to do as much work as we can. Certain issues, if we are making progress, we might spend a bit more time on them, and then we'll take the rest to the mailing list. John Clanson suggested that we might want to do an interim in, next month or so. I think, obviously we need to agree whether this is a good idea, but this sounds like a reasonable thing to me. And let's get started. Okay. You should all be familiar with Note well. Okay, I'm just skipping this code of conduct. Be nice to each other. We kind of have a note taker for part of the meeting, but thank you, Ken. But if we get to the applicability statement, somebody will need to take notes then. Can somebody? Yes, please log in into Miteco if you can. If you are in the room, please use masks unless you're presenting at the mic. So, there is quite a lot of stuff on the agenda. I'm probably not going to ask to rejiggle stuff because we'll just deal with whatever we have in the slides. Can I have a show of hands who read the slides? That's. I'm basically shooting lasers out of my eyes now. Okay, well, we'll do our best. Okay. So, very quickly, Pete posted a new version of 5322 bis. He did a change in response to errata about obsolete time zones. Nobody commented on the mailing list. If people have any objections to this, please send your comments on the mailing list. I'm just trying to alert people to this change. I think it's very reasonable personally, but obviously if you disagree, then let chairs know. Can you just take a notes in your favorite editor? Sure. That's fine. So the next thing is we are going to talk about various issues related to the trace header field. And Pete will talk.
This is Pete. Hello.
Hello.
So the issue comes down to there are definitions for trace that occur in both 5321 and 5322. And let's be clear, there are three different things we're talking about. There are things that are named slightly differently, trace in the ABNF. There are things that different documents call trace headers, like an adjective, and then there are things that get stuck on top of messages as they're going through transport and other systems, and those may or may not be trace. So that's sort of the setup for what's going on here. So 5322 currently defines a very general syntax for the receive field and points to 5321 and says, go see therefore what the exact syntax is and stops. And then 5321 has a much more restrictive syntax.
Okay. Sorry, you're kind of jumping a little bit.
I did.
So I think you want this slide.
Okay, that's a good
This is
slide.
the comparison slide between two syntaxes.
Now, one thing about the 5322 syntax, which was mentioned on the list, is it's really general. So you could generate from it things that definitely do not conform to 5321 in any way, shape, or form, including particularly things that have one of those receive tokens and not a pair. So you could come up with an odd number, which is definitely verboten in 5321. But it does limit the syntax somewhat. And so the question is that limit, well, we can go on to the next slide. You can see what the differences here are. But go on to the next slide. So we've got this issue 74. There's the 5321 question about whether the attributes are ordered the way they are currently specified in the ABNF. We've got the 5322 question about whether we need to be more specific and make it pairs in the ABNF, or make it even more general and make it just unstructured stuff and the definition is elsewhere. Or possibly, should there just be one ABNF definition and then the other document, likely 5322, says, go look there for the definition. We don't even bother specifying it here. So here are some possible choices, just to give you lots of fun. So number one is exactly what 5322 does at the moment, which is 1 star receive token. Receive token includes word, which includes atom, which allows you to do atom followed by the value, atom followed by the value, atom followed by the value, but allows for an odd number of them. Number two makes the atom explicit. So atom receive token, 1 or more of those. Okay.
And just a quick clarification. It's typically atom include forward white comments, so there are spaces automatically between tokens. Don't be alerted.
Yeah,
it's kind of the way the grammar is written, which is also slightly curious, but yeah, just the way it is.
Okay. Number 3 is the same as number 1, so no change to the syntax, but put a comment in specifically pointing over to the 5321, I think it should say, syntax. That was a typo. Sorry about that. Number 4
Yes, sorry.
is basically move the 5321 syntax entirely into 5322.
Well, okay, that wasn't quite what I intended. What I intended is, well, move a copy, and because opt-info includes all the extension fields, then basically extensibility is explicit this way.
Right. But
Yeah.
this is putting more of the syntax into 5322 than is currently there. It's being more specific.
Correct.
And number 5 is combine 2 and 3, make the syntax change and add a comment. Number 6 is give up and say received : unstructured, and then point to 5321. Put a comment in that says it's all their problem over there, not ours. Do we have another slide, or is that it?
Well, no, that's the next issue.
That's the next issue. So the question on the table is, what, if anything, do we want to do here? I could give you this editor's opinion, but I'd rather hear from you all than make the decision. It seems that some chap named Alexei is in the queue.
Okay, let me actually be late in the queue. And John
Levine.
in the room? Yes.
John Levine
And
is
then-
top of the queue, front of the queue.
I think we should give up and do number 6 because my experience, which which is just mine, is that received headers fall into 2 general categories. One is people who read the spec and they match 5321 pretty well. And the other is organizations such as those in Redmond, Washington that put in random crap. And if we want to describe reality, 6 is basically it. I mean, if we want to encourage people to follow the rules, we can, but after 50 years, I think they're going to do what they do.
Interesting. Okay, John Clancy?
Another argument for 6 is that if received fields are inserted by non-SMTP transports, there is no guarantee that they are going to use the stuff semicolon date time syntax that we're now specifying in both documents. And not only the semicolon date time, but the precise date time version that we're specifying in both documents, which is inconsistent with date times which are being specified elsewhere, like in sedate and places like that. And that's again a strong argument for number 6, I think. I have very mixed feelings about all of this, which really complicates things. Thanks.
Okay, we have minor technical difficulties because projector say it's about to turn off, and we need to click something we don't know how to do. No, probably not it, but in the meantime, speaking as a participant, I think I prefer option 2. Realistically,
we have technical people. Excellent.
All registered attributes have values. I think probably not having this is going to break some stuff, maybe. As a possible thing to help us out, if we decide to investigate this, I can probably write a parser and run, digest a big mailing list and see if existing received headers satisfy the pair requirements, if I get any errors. But obviously, I cannot do this information on the spot.
Ken?
Yeah, this is Ken. So my preference would be just to reference 5321, but that may not be realistic. But I just wanted to voice that opinion.
Just reference and not even do number 6.
Do nothing in 22 and just point at 21. Have it defined in one place. But again, may not be realistic.
I think this is more like number 3 then. No?
No, he's
Oh,
saying
you want to actually remove the syntax.
the entire section. Yeah.
Okay.
So, is that it for the queue? Speaking for myself, 1 and 3 are my personal favorites, only because my gut has always been least change. I would hate for us to change something in this document and have it screw up some implementation down the road that attempts to change things. I think we all agree that whatever 5321 produces is going to fit into choice 1 or 3 is 1 with a comment. And I'm afraid that choice 6 will encourage behavior that will turn out badly. But that is speaking just as a participant. I will take direction of the group, obviously.
Okay. Actually, John? Oh.
John.
Concern.
Oh, there you are.
Um,
Give me a second.
Yeah, sorry. Can you clarify the concern a little bit before you walk away from the mic? To me, if we do something which looks more restrictive than the current text, looks as distinct from is, then I fully agree with your concern. But if we put something in there which says completely unstructured as far as this document is concerned, goes to the other document if you're looking for some additional syntax, which is what 6 does, or an appropriate paragraph which says this stuff is really covered by the transport spec, go look at 5321 bis, which is what Ken suggested and what I suggested some weeks earlier, then I don't think there's a problem with somebody looking at it and saying, aha, this has become more restrictive. We have to run off and start rejecting valid fields. And indeed, that's my concern about even leaving the semicolon date time in, because if you're worried about people rejecting valid fields, then the validity of that field becomes an issue where things which we would consider perfectly reasonable don't fail the test or don't pass
Because
the test.
something like they wouldn't have a date time or something like that?
Well, at the moment, I am more worried about something using an ISO date time or a sedate date time rather than a 5322 date time. But yes, somebody might decide that putting in a timestamp without a time is rational.
Well, so here's my concern, John. If there is legacy code out there expecting a 5322 date time, and we loosen this structure, then what you've done is increase the likelihood that some piece of code is going to blow up by saying completely unstructured. And maybe we think the chances of that are low, but the whole principle here was moving to full standard. And my gut is that means don't change things that we haven't seen as currently causing a problem. It causes a problem in terms of the agreement of the documents and making sure that the documents work together. But if we don't change the syntax in any particular way now between the documents, we leave them as they were in 5322 and 5321, that seems less likely to cause harm, even though I mean, I agree. There's something very attractive about 6. There's something very attractive about 2, as far as I'm concerned.
And to me, there's something very attractive about 5, just to be comprehensive about this.
Yep. Again, I am leaning on least change.
I understand that, and my difficulty is that I am having trouble figuring out why, if what we're worried about here is rejection from some code that followed the specification carefully earlier, and now we relax the rules, and they get confused and start rejecting things which they would have accepted before.
No. The opposite. What I'm worried about is we've got something as an interpreter, as a reader of messages that conforms to the current rules. And now we have a piece of software that, because we relax the rules, starts generating lots and lots of messages that do not conform to the old rules. And now we have increased likelihood that those messages will get through to things that will be broken.
And that then gets back to the who's defining a trace field and who's defining what is a trace field more generally than received, and who gets to put them in. And if the answer is that who gets to put received fields particularly in is an MTA, then your third category is in trouble regardless, because it needs to be following 5321, even under the existing text in 5321 and 5321 bis, even under the existing text in 5322. And so again, if the concern is that putting in 6 would make this less restrictive and therefore cause problems. I don't see it. If the purpose of having this stuff in 5322 at all is to define and accept syntax and a parsing syntax for something which your text already says they're not supposed to pay any attention to semantics of. So I don't know where to go here, but I think that last makes an argument either for 6 or preferably for Ken's suggestion.
So rather than have the two document authors up here going back and forth, does anybody else want to see if they can unlock this?
Barry?
Sure, this is Barry. Well, I'll say I'm with Pete on the minimal change. Ambivalent between 1 and 3, but maybe the reference is good, so 3. But yeah, I understand John's concern, but I think minimal change, especially in the grammar, is important.
Ken?
This is Ken. So having advocated for the reference back to 21, which may not be realistic, I also agree with Pete that minimal change in 22, I think will be the least disruptive.
Okay. Alexia, as a participant, I think the reason why I don't like just putting a pointer there is because in theory, there can be other transports that don't have to follow SMTP syntax.
I am happy
I know it's a bit...
I'm happy to put in a C, for example, instead of C. But
I'm not as fast as long as this. If the syntax is unchanged and there is a comment, for SMT, for transport in SMTP, see this. So it actually can be normative, but be specific as well. So I think that works.
John? I'm not hearing John. Did you need to? Oh, we lost John for a second. Barry, you want to go, and then when John comes back, we'll get John.
Barry will go, and we'll get John when he comes back. How often in the real world do we actually see received lines put in by transports other than SMTPs such that we should jump through hoops? I understand we have to allow for it, but
I know we see received lines put in by certain spam engines.
I'm not counting them.
Oh.
Because the spam part is, we're not trying to make the grammar work for the spammers. We're trying.
No.
So
Anti-spam.
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 Sorry.
Okay. They actually put received lines in that don't conform to SMTP rules.
I think we've seen a couple of old ones, not current ones.
Yeah.
Old ones do that. We have seen interim processes so that things that are doing MDA kinds of operations or mailing list exploder kinds of operations will stick a received field in there to mark that they've done something.
Right. And that's still happening now.
I believe that's
because I know we used to see it all the time 20 years ago, but
and John
Levine has one right here. Okay.
John Clenson, sorry, you disappeared for a bit.
Sorry. First answer to Barry's question is 20 years ago, definitely. Now I'm not sure if we've got that stuff being put in, and if John Levine has an example, then that's definitive. Are all of them actually following the syntax, including the date time in RMC 5322 form?
I'm pretty sure, by the way, the answer to that latter question, John, is no, not all of them are.
Then if the goal is to avoid breaking existing implementations or the next implementation to come along, that's an argument for reducing the syntax in the direction of unstructured, even though it's not an argument necessarily for going all the way to unstructured. I don't know where we're going.
Well, I think for...
I'm sorry, go ahead, John. The floor is yours.
I can live with 3. Or any combination of two in the comment. If we do one other thing which does not affect the syntax, which is to take a careful look at the paragraph which follows this, and attempts to say, well, don't really look here, look in 5321 or look somewhere else. Because that paragraph is very hard to follow unless one knows what it's intended to mean. So I would be happy to work with you on that paragraph if we stay with the existing, more or less with the existing syntax. But I think staying with the existing syntax without really tuning up that paragraph would be a mistake.
Okay, that's fair enough. So
Is this paragraph?
Yes, that paragraph.
That paragraph, yeah.
Fine. Okay, so
But I think your answer is reasonable insofar as what we do is, if we're going to go that path, the two of us work on this paragraph. We make a proposal to the working group. And if we can't come to consensus on this paragraph, then we have to go back and figure out whether there's consensus on the syntax. I mean, this is not making life pleasant for the chairs, and I'm sorry, but at some point you're going to have to call this consensus rough, because it's going to be rough one way or the other.
yep. Barry, quick comment?
This is Barry. My sense is that I have all faith that Pete and John together can come up with something we'll all be able to live with. So.
More faith than at least John and probably Pete, but I appreciate your support.
I appreciate expressions of faith. Do we? So, do you feel, Alexei, like that is going to make the chairs calm and happy?
Do I feel worse than I was feeling before the section started? Yes.
That's what I think I asked. I think I asked it the other way, but that's okay.
I think that's a workable proposal. Yes.
Okay.
So what I'm hearing is weak preference with no change, with adding a comment to a BNF and no syntactic change, and editors of the two documents will collaborate to propose a text to the mailing list, and we'll see whether we get whether this gets working group consensus.
I think so. And you're going to have to determine how weak that support is, or how strong that support is once the paragraph comes out. But yeah, I think that's what we're proposing at this point.
Yeah, I'm very unhappy about this, and we'll do a lot of nose holding while we're working on it. But in a sense, this problem should have been solved with in YAM. And if we didn't get to it, then Pete's argument has some merit, despite the fact that I don't like its implications.
We both agree there is going to be nose holding to a certain extent going on.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. Still on trace header fields.
You need me up here for this?
Yes. Hopefully, this is something we can agree on in the room. This is a question that John asked about registry for the trace header fields.
So the question is, do we make a registry? If we do, how does it interact with the existing registry of message header fields? Do we have a separate registry, or do we somehow combine them? Do we want to add a discussion of any sort about trace header fields as comments in the current registry? Do we want to just do nothing and keep everything the way it is? And again, for purposes of discussion, I'll remind everybody that we tend to mush together things which meet the syntax of trace, ABNF element, things that are stuff that gets stuck on the top of messages as it goes through the system, and things that happen to be called trace and are dealt with semantically by ignore this stuff unless, if you're parsing messages, this is for information only. Don't act on it in any particular way if you're doing message parses.
And we mix a third thing together, which is fields which may or may not be traced by any rational definition of trace other than the stuff which goes at the top.
Right, things
with-
that end up at the top for no particular reason whatsoever.
Right.
Right. This ticket is for trace as currently defined, as in stuff added. While the
As it goes
message,
through the transport system.
and it applies to MSAs, MTAs, MDAs, everything. Right. Before we get the discussion, I did talk to Graham about message header field registry and about the question on whether it would be a good idea to remove any fields from it and put it into a separate registry. He said that without understanding too much context, the way I phrased the question, he said it wouldn't be a good idea because the other registry is to be able to find all message header fields.
Yes.
As far as adding extra fields, which are email specific,
Like
or
a column.
like an extra column, which only applies to, trace, or mangling description to add this information. He has no preference and he thinks that either one is workable. So in a way, we kind of have a choice.
That's a good input from our.
Right. Now,
expert
let's talk
reviewer.
about whether people think it's a good idea to have this registry.
Mr. Leva.
This is Barry. So the that covered some of what I was going to say. The first thing I was going to say is that if we have a separate registry, we must leave these in the existing registry, and the definition of the new registry has to say that nothing can go in here unless it's already in the other one. But the other thing that Alexei said was what I was going to suggest. God, I hope not, that we don't need another registry. I would rather have information in the existing registry that says this is one of those things. And whether that be a column for it is or it isn't, or whether it be a description that just verbally tells us, or whatever it is, that's the way I think we should go.
Okay, so actually, maybe I should have phrased the question of, do people think we need this information in a registry in some form? And you're saying yes. And you prefer as just...
I'm ambivalent on that, but I'm saying that if we do, I think that's the way we should do it. But
Okay.
I'm not really decided on whether we need
So
that information or
absolutely
not.
not
It
a
would-
new registry,
Right.
but.
It would not be harmful to have that information, so why not? But it ought to just be a comment or something in the existing registry.
Okay, fine. Thank you for
John
the...
Levine.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Barry in substance, but I'm going to tweak the emphasis, which is no registry, no new registry, no, 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 no. I think adding a new column, adding a column to the existing registries would be straightforward, and then we can bike shit about what goes in the column. And my inclination would be blank by default. Yes, if it's a normal one, or a footnote if people do weird things with it.
Okay.
Who's next?
Me.
Ah.
Speaking as a participant, I think I prefer a new registry because it's kind of easier to find if you're only looking for these. The reason why I like this is because for somebody writing MUA, there is a common function for edit existing message as new message, and this function typically requires stripping all trace header fields for security reasons. So to implement this, I kind of would like to have this information somewhere. I don't mind if it's an extra column in existing registry or a comment. So I would like to have this information, kind of ambivalent about the three choices.
Mr. Clenson.
First of all,
I'm sorry.
I pose this as a question because I don't have an answer or strong preferences, except to say that if we are going to single out trace fields from other kinds of extension fields with syntax rules somewhere, then or with rules about what goes at the top, then we better be able to identify trace fields in the registry. Now, whether that means two registries, one registry with comments, two registries with pointers to each other, and which way the pointers should go, I'm almost completely agnostic. I just want to be sure that if trace fields and extension trace fields are different from extension fields, that we have a clear way to identify that from the registries or whatever documentation we require. But since that header field registry is, if I recall, first come, first serve, we don't require any documentation, so it has to be the registry.
Okay, Ken.
Hi, this is Ken. I just want to +1 what John Levine and Barry said. No new registry, new column, please.
So, editor hat off for sure, but I have a question, which is, what are the semantics of this column going to be? Because as I tried to harp on before, there is a big distinction between thing introduced by the transport system, thing introduced by, for instance, a spam checking engine, and thing that happens to be added showing some action with this message, whether or not it was submission and or delivery. And this happened to end up here at the top of the message, which we clearly know are not trace fields. What are the semantics of being in this column? Are they trace, as in MTAs are only allowed to do this?
No.
Are they, as
no,
you want, strip outable?
Okay.
Yeah.
We had a long discussion over a year and a half, when Ned was still around, about definition of the trace header fields as a semantic of it. This is what in the current draft. I would like not to reopen this discussion.
I agree.
And the question I asked earlier was, assuming that definition, this is what the registry is for. So if you want to register other header fields which are not trace, they will still go to message header field names registry anyway, but they will have nothing in this column.
And so I just want to check with John, because it was John's, I'm sorry, there's two Johns and I keep doing that. I want to check with John Clenson. There was something in what you said which made me think that it was that you wanted things marked in this column that were more than the definition of trace that we've already got. Did I get that wrong?
I think so.
Good. That will make Alexi happy, and that will make me happy too.
Yeah. Our only question then becomes a variation of the earlier question, which is whether we are still comfortable with this definition of trace fields, and whether that definition is consistent between 821 and between 5321 and 5322, and whether we can straighten that out by an appropriate hand waving paragraph. And I don't know the answer to those three questions until we try writing the paragraph.
Do we have
I do believe, Pete,
yeah,
that your syntax may want to, and if this has been said on list, that your syntax may want to drop the attempt at distinguishing in the ABNF between trace fields and other things, and we do that in prose, because the what goes to the top stuff is getting very, very confusing in the ABNF. It's hard to follow, and it's not clear given other stuff which goes at the beginning, which is not what any rational person would call a trace field. It's not really helpful anymore.
right. That's going to take a think, because I know what you're talking about. It's that optional field in the top chunk.
Yes.
Which
No, it's the
might
optional
be,
field in the top chunk. It's including resent in the top chunk and not somewhere else, because that can end up at the bottom of the,
Yep.
that whole can of worms.
All right. I think I have my marching orders for what I need to do. The registry thing ain't my problem, but I'm comfortable with understanding what tasks I have for 5322.
Well,
Because I think the registry is going to be mentioned in 5321 or just created separately, right? Or I'm not saying created, but and the new
actually,
column.
that's an interesting question. Maybe it's in your document. It should be created in your document because it's not only SMTP that's adding these. However, let's not decide this here because I think we can write the text about registry. We kind of know how to do IANA considerations, and then we'll figure out where to put it.
Okay.
Let's not bike shed on this now.
Good.
Okay.
Any other slides that I have to cover? Just did that.
Any other slides that we have time for? That's a question, isn't it?
Good. I get to run away now. Have fun,
Right.
John.
Okay, so we're way over our, time allocated for this. So what we'll do is, John, you quickly talk about recent changes. Then we try to talk about other IANA registries because hopefully it's not too difficult. Well, I'll just keep all my fingers crossed, because I can never know now. And then if we get time to talk about SMTP extensions, again, we'll try to do that. After that, I suspect we'll run out of time.
Okay, let me try to go through this slide almost instantly by saying that we aren't going to have time to discuss any of these issues today. I don't think we're going to need to discuss any of these issues today, but I wanted to call people's attention to them because if they do have problems or objections, we should hear about them quickly on the mailing list or if necessary, get that interim scheduled real quickly and do it then. The only thing here which has not been talked about extensively is a arbitrary small group decision that we were getting ourselves into a hole. If a server was unavailable but only temporarily, and if whoever was responding to the SMTP connection was able to respond to that connection, and whether one could rationally use a code there, and if so, what the code should be. And if we start inventing new codes at this stage, we're going down a serious rat hole. So the arbitrary decision was to repurpose 450, if used in that context, to mean server temporarily unavailable rather than mailbox temporarily unavailable. But those are the only new issues here, and it's all covered in much more detail in the relevant appendix to 5321 bis 15, and I would encourage people who haven't read that to go do it.
Yeah, and speaking as individual about 450 and server temporarily unavailable, I think it's very much in the spirit of definition of the reply code. So as far as I'm concerned, it seems very sensible change. But obviously, again, if you agree or if you disagree, send the email to the mailing list. If you're agreeing that, your silence will be considered as consent. Right. So John did quite a good job on SMTP extensions, to which we'll hopefully get to today. But he also identified that, well, we have 3 other registries that have now subsections. And after looking into this in more details, it looks like they don't actually, be very exact about the IANA registration procedure for them. So address literal tags. It just says request.
The only literal tag which is defined now is IPv6. So this becomes important only for the next network transport IP layer format. And unless you think you want to see IPv10 without IETF consensus, then this probably remains where it is.
Yeah, so I think you're basically saying it should be standard section. I think these are rare enough that if somebody, creates a new underlying protocol, we'll need to think about it. We'll need an RFC, so standard section, right?
Yeah, the only reason I can see for making this permissive is if we want to encourage denial of service attacks.
Right. So I think my suggestion here is that the text still needs to be clarified. Request standardization, by specifying, standards track RFC kind of thing. So just make it explicit what exact registration procedure is. Any comments on this? Any objections? Obviously, we'll still need to verify it on the mailing list, but I'm just kind of trying to get a sense in the room. Right. Next one is mail transmission types for via and with clauses. And the current text says only by standardization or by way of RFC documented ISG approved experimental protocol extension. Again, I think it's not actually using the most modern IANA registration procedure language. So we need to tweak this to actually say exactly what it's supposed to be. Barry, do you want to come up and comment on this? And
Yeah, if you want to go with BCP 26, current BCP 26 language, then the right thing to do is to say not standards action, but IETF review, I think is what it's called.
yes, the second choice below. Yeah.
Yeah, there he is, IETF review. That allows, theoretically allows informational or BCPs, but in practice, it's, nobody's going to write that as informational. So if you want to explicitly, you can say IETF review, but not informational if you want to go there, but I don't think we need to.
Yeah. Any objections to going the IETF informational? IETF review route that will also allow informational. Okay, I'm not hearing. Murray has two
We
thumbs
didn't
up.
hear anything, but we saw John hold his nose.
Well, at least Murray was happy. Murray was showing, that is, approving signs. Okay, fine. So let's do this. And similarly,
Thumbs up is my equivalent of holding my nose.
Thank you.
Additional registered clauses, that's basically what new attributes going to received header field. And again, it kind of, the text is slightly confusing. It says standards track in one place, then it mentioned experimental. Again, I suggest we probably want to just say IETF review. And it's also keeping consistency between three registries, probably a good idea. Any objections or any arguments for doing something else?
Same nose holding gesture, but I can certainly live with this.
Okay. Well,
We don't have time to debate this bit here, but this is making me think about when I update BCP 26, whether there ought to be something that says IETF review, but does not allow informational. But anyway.
Yeah, I personally don't think we care enough here in the working group. And when you have experimental, you might as well allow informational, especially if it's documenting something which is in use. So, it's kind of okay. All right. And now, for the final 12 minutes, everybody wake up, do a little bit of exercises. IANA registration procedure for SMTP extensions. As it happens, my slides might be out of date now. But this is basically how we got here. This is what we've done so far. And okay, so we have two ways. There are some questions I wanted to ask in regards to existing text, which might or might not depend on the general direction question. Shall we discuss general direction first?
Well, I'll say that I briefly read John's very recent note to the mailing list, and I think that's probably the right direction of having permanent and provisional, or whatever we want to call them, where permanent is stricter review and provisional covers the rest of it.
So
That
basically,
gives us the path for anybody to register something with minimal checking, but still having most of the stuff properly vetted.
okay, let me try to rephrase it for the audience who haven't seen the message. And then John, you can tell me whether I'm right or wrong. I think basically proposal is to use something like URI registry, which has permanent registration that requires full template and more strict procedure, and provisional registration that requires very minimal work. Is this roughly the proposal? Is it correct, John?
It is. I would prefer that we get rid of the word provisional and
Yes,
find
I-
the term, and find the term which more closely approximates. We wanted to register this name, but we don't have any interest in pursuing this through the IETF.
Yes.
Provisional has the implication of being a two-step process. This is really not a two-step process. This is some people care about what the IETF thinks and want that recognition, and others don't, and we just separate them. And that should allow us to move forward with the FCFS rule on the I don't care about the IETF stuff, which is much better than trying to screw around with redefining specification required. So it's almost first come, first served, but isn't quite, which is where I think we've been going around in circles.
Yep.
So how about if we call one section reviewed by the IETF and the other section other registrations, or something like that?
I think that's the right direction. I would be delighted if Alexi were to just to assign you and I to be a small committee to sort that out rather than trying to spend time.
Done.
Okay.
John and I will do that.
And speaking as a participant, I quite like this direction as well. That works as well. I was thinking about, some of my questions were about registrations for extensions defined in RFCs, and I think that kind of addresses it nicely. And you will need to update the document, but I think some of the work you've done will still be useful. So you don't have to actually go back to the previous version and restart. I think you can probably build on what you already have.
Well, that was my remaining question. What I did with with -15 was slightly in 14, but entirely in 15, was to pull all of the text, almost all the text recommending that people really should ask for advice and listen to it, or get advice and listen to it, out of the IANA stuff and into 2.2.2. And unless somebody objects, I'm inclined to leave that there, because asking for advice is still a good idea.
Right. And looking at the list,
I may need to adjust that by saying there that if they go through the standards, through the IETF procedures, that they're getting that advice whether they like it or not. But I don't want to go off and pull out all the text.
correct. And looking at on the list of questions on the current text that you have in the draft before you came with this proposal, I can see that number 5 certainly goes away because we just kind of addressed it.
Right.
Some of the other ones might be neat. I think I noticed that in your text, we probably should say that registration that done in proposed standards should have IETF as a change controller. That's kind of very standard for other registries.
So for all these questions, just in the interest of time, why don't you just throw these at John and me in our little powwow that we're going to do, and we'll come back with a proposal.
Okay, John, quick, if you have,
fine.
do you have, if you have a quick answer to this, or?
Well, I think the quick answer is that most of this is going to be solved in a fairly automatic way by splitting this registry in half. And, and, and other than that, I'm more than happy to take Barry's suggestion.
Okay, so this goes away.
Yeah, that one definitely goes away.
Yes. Okay. We have 5 minutes and we'll let Ken just quickly tell us what the recent changes are to alert people of things they might not have been fully paying attention to. But
Yeah, so briefly, John and I crafted some new text for the introduction. The introduction that was there was more of a placeholder than an actual introduction to what the current draft is. So please take a look at that. I added a very, very, very minimal security section just to get people to focus on it and bash and help add text where needed. Issue 51, that's kind of been split into the HTML specific stuff and more general stuff, and Barry graciously provided me with a bunch of text for the general stuff, mostly case sensitivity and stuff. So thank you for that, Barry. Added a little bit of text that was posted on issue 55 on use of the for clause. Again, it's there for bashing. If you are so inclined, please provide replacement or augmented text. Issue 65, I think this was pretty straightforward. I think we probably just closed this, stating that implementation should or are expected to support mine. We didn't use BCP 14 language there. Lastly, well, not quite lastly, but I did add an acknowledgement section with the list of people that have provided text both on the list and in the GitHub. If I've missed anybody, including yourselves, please just send me a note and I will be more than happy to add you to that section. Issue 38, this is the 78 versus 998 line limit stuff. And I failed to reach out to Pete as I was supposed to in time to get text in this draft. So we will get together and work on that. 66, I forget what that is. That is, oh, is that the time zone issue?
yeah, to which we're not going to get to, but that's okay.
Yeah, there's just a minimal placeholder there in case we do come up with text and decide to do something.
Okay, we have 3 minutes. I will try to ask 2 questions. John noticed that some people are trying percent encode non-ASCII email addresses. So I think we want to add some text saying that you cannot do this because you cannot actually expect all systems to follow this. I think it's fairly straightforward. Ken, you happy to try just add
I will take a crack at some text.
Okay. And in regards to the email addresses in the form, I'm going to skip 2 slides about what Ken added. Again, I encourage people to read the latest draft and comment.
Yeah, please do. I think I captured everything that was on the list, but it's always possible I missed something.
But I want to actually tease one issue related to this is basically the AS at the moment is pointing to HTML document, and this is ABNF from this document. The question for this group is, are we happy with this ABNF? And also the related question, are we happy to reference HTML document, or do we have to have do we prefer to have our own definition? Because obviously HTML, what working group can probably change the definition without consulting with us. And if we don't, or if we keep the reference to their document, and if we're not quite happy with their definition, we need to feed this information back to them. So any quick comments on this? John?
Real quick before John speaks, my reasoning for just putting the link in was if that document changes, it does not make the AS incorrect at any point in time. It's always pointing to whatever the live, most current ABNF.
For some
presentation.
definition of incorrect, it's not going to be inconsistent, I would say. But whether this is what we want or not, I think that's a question.
Yeah, John Levine. Yeah, my answer to most of your questions is no. I am not happy with this grammar, but I don't think we can ignore it. And in particular, I'm not happy that it allows consecutive dots, which in practice.
There is
nobody
actually
allows.
text on this already, so it
Yeah.
kind of extra text that compensate for the grammar not being quite.
Yeah. So yeah, my inclination is to point to the HTML document, explain why it's wrong.
Yes.
Admit that a whole lot of people use it. And I think out of band, use our contacts with the web crowd to encourage them to fix it. So we can
Okay,
point.
so who
Yeah.
wants to be on the team to on the small team to write some text and contact them?
I guess I just volunteered, didn't I?
You did, and
Okay.
I would like at least one other person for this. Yeah, okay. Arndt, fine. Okay. John? The other John?
Yeah, as I think I mentioned on list, there is already a discussion going on within W3C between the HTML group and the internationalization group about this syntax. And maybe it will change, and maybe it will not change, and maybe if it does change, what WG will pay attention to it, and maybe they won't. But I would really like to see us figure out how to avoid getting tangled up with that, because even if John, with my help, and I guess I sort of volunteered if I'm going to do that, go off and approach them, it is not clear that whatever it is we say will be stable.
Right. So would you rather us cut and pasting ABNF and maybe fixing it up, or do we?
I think I would prefer prose, which is there are other definitions out there, including this one. But if you expect things to interoperate, really better follow our specifications rather than whatever is made up somewhere else as part of an interface to other kinds of systems. And if you want to say it that way, that one needs to pick the common subset of whatever else is going on. But I think that if the HTML definitions are a little bit broken and are going to get either better or worse over time, that citing them in something which sounds like normatively is just looking for trouble.
Okay. Can I suggest you review what's Ken wrote in the draft? Because I think some of what you're suggesting is already covered, other than,
Indeed.
Obviously referencing HTML, and you suggest edits.
Yep.
Okay. Right. On that note, we are 3 minutes over time. Can I have a quick show of hands who is happy with having interim early December to? I have slides now. Okay, at least 3 people plus me. John, you're happy. Todd is happy. Okay. Pete, are you happy with interim in early December? Okay. All right. Well, let's do that. And in the meantime, people can work on various tickets. Maybe we can make progress on stuff we agreed here today. Okay. Thank you very much all for coming and joining us remotely. I don't think we quite get various drafts in ISG review for Christmas, but let's push for progress on this, please. Right.
And
Thank you very much.
the more progress we can make on the mailing list, the better off we are. And if that results in canceling the interim because we'd rather go to IETF last call, that would be delightful.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you all.
Thanks very much. Enjoy London.